Good evening and welcome to a new edition of To The Point. This evening, Nile TV is continuing its special coverage of the United States is electing its president. With us this evening to discuss this hot topic is His Excellency Ambassador Nabil Badr, who is a former assistant and advisor to the foreign minister. A pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
Your Excellency, maybe one of the first questions I'll ask is, who are you expecting to make it to the White House? Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump?
I wrote an article in Al Gumhuriyya, which goes back to probably last May, in which I thought that Clinton stands a better chance. I still maintain that view. As you know, it's only a week since I came back from the States. And I had a chance of going around and talking to people and, of course, joining in the assessment which came from different clans in the society.
Yes.
In spite of lots of difficulties. This does not mean, by the way, just if I want to be very brief, I would say, well, Clinton has a better chance. If I want to elaborate...
After your visit to the United States, as you said, you spent the last 3 months there and you just came back. So right at the eve of the election, so to speak. After that 3-month visit, are you still of the mind that it's Hillary that will land into the White House?
Yeah, the only thing which probably I learned to speculate on, because it's going to have its impact on the present situation and in the future as well. I found that a good number of Americans say, all right, Hillary's okay, she might go, but they were not fully convinced that, well, this is the ultimate excellent choice. In other words, it was a way which was subjected most of the time to a comparison between the potential here, the potential there.
Yes.
And, of course, at the same time, defining the defects in both candidates. And at the same time, as you know, the media and the 3 debates exposed a lot of problems and still do. I've had a chance, probably professionally and otherwise, to witness more than one election, more than one presidential election in the United States, including 2008 when President Obama was chosen. No, there was a virtual, true enthusiasm. You could find the people, well, expecting something, some change. You could find people overtaken by enthusiasm. I remember in a very good quarter of the place where I lived, one or many of the people put on the doors of their houses boards saluting Obama and wishing him well. And of course, Obama, as you know, and Michelle Obama as well, they are very good speakers.
Yes.
That had a great impact. And at the same time, no one tried to dig in Obama's mischievous operation here or there, the way you witnessed in that election. So I think that this election, if I look at in the way of comparing the general climate with previous ones, number one, it has opened, and I hope that should be taken under consideration, it has opened new files, which we should really highlight and should take care of. And these files as well is going to have their impact in the United States proper. That's number one. Number two, that this very harsh battle, as I said, is not in most of the cases a sort of a complete conviction that I have made the 100% good choice. Some people can say, well, and who does make 100%? But there's a lack of enthusiasm in most cases.
In this election, you see
in this election, yeah.
Yes.
And there is some sort of harsh comparison between the two candidates, Trump and...
How many are you expecting to turn out? In other words, since you don't feel that the Americans are really satisfied with both candidates, it's basically you have to fill the space in the White House. This is the choice now.
I like your expression.
And out of those eligible to vote, do you think 50, 60%, 70%? I mean, how many are you expecting to actually turn out and vote?
Well, I'd say that it might turn out to something between 5% more for Clinton.
No, out of the whole constituency, out of those eligible to vote.
Exactly. About 5, yeah. Mind you something, in the final analysis, the American electorate is certainly mature, has a lot of experience, and is quite able to weigh the things and the procedure which might go. And at the same time, when they vote and they decide they're going to do something, and there's something which is really a very important safeguard, which in the discussions going on is being sometimes not given the right perspective, which is the system or the United States system. Yes, the president has a lot of power. He's the head of the executive. He's the commander-in-chief. He runs the foreign policy, etc., etc., etc. But at the same time, you have got a system which is equally very strong. You have got a Congress. You have got a Senate. You have got a media. You have got a public opinion. And what I have witnessed in the last period or so in the States, and certainly that was transmitted everywhere, is the campaigns against Trump in the American media. And that was led by most important media stations or newspapers, including the New York Times. And
could it be an influence? Can we read in this an influence of the Zionist lobby, since most of the media is owned?
No, it's not. It's not a matter of lobbying here. I think personally that Trump has a personal problem, which is he has such a big ego, and that sometimes that ego looks like the factor which overrules his decisions, his way of thinking, the way he projects himself, the way he even attacks or comments on certain things. And that's very serious, because you cannot really, I mean, that ego itself is a matter for analysis, and this is not our subject. The second thing, for the public opinion, you cannot ask the public opinion to please follow me because I have that big ego, which might be for some people quite repressive, quite strong, quite unacceptable.
What about the politics of it? I mean, Clinton has been in office before, not only as a first lady, and she was not the behind-the-scenes first lady, because when she was the first lady, she had a lot of influence, and she did a lot of things, especially with healthcare reform program that she carried out. But she was also the Secretary of State. And she really played a lot of politics. Her foreign policy, which is really what she was entrusted with in the previous administration or in this current administration, is it music to the Americans' ears? Because some are concerned about, for example, when we heard the interviews, some are concerned about Trump's point of view vis-a-vis nuclear power, for example. Are Americans pleased with what Hillary is saying when it comes to foreign policy?
Okay. Let me start by the following. The first week, the first 2 weeks when I was in the States this time, I think the general feeling was that Bernie Sanders was a good candidate. I talked to lots of people, and many people spoke with adequate conviction that he's okay, that he does represent something, okay? Well, he did not continued to the end of the race.
Yes.
And Clinton won. But that really is important if you compare how people looked at that thing at that time. Bernie Sanders versus Clinton. Clinton, some people think, lacks adequate credibility. Two, that she might be, in certain cases, professionally, more flexible than she should, but without getting to a target which is accepted, which is acclaimed, which is the desire of the people. Something which also this campaign has projected, which is the social element. And that's something which Donald Trump actually lacked. Now, that social file was opened by Bernie Sanders at first. He spoke about the rights of the poor, the privileges and the responsibility of the administration vis-a-vis these people in the States in forms of extending welfare, health care, whatever other services the state can provide. And he was probably outspoken. Sometimes I thought that was a bit strange when he, in certain instances, attacked Wall Street and some of its practices, and he was not for that. Now, to come back to Clinton, I think Clinton transmitted some of these concerns. She spoke highly about health care, or the Obama health care. Yes. And she spoke about her personal role in pushing that project. And that was aligned to her public life in general, which extended to helping people, extending social services, showing concern, etc., etc. And certainly, when that reflects as well on what is termed the minorities within the American composition, whether these be Hispanics or Mexicans or Middle Easterners or Muslims or so on, these people find that, well, she's a safer candidate. She's better to talk of, because when she even speaks about getting immigration better organized, organization is something, but closing the door, building the fence, and going through all that argumentation, which is targeting the Hispanics, Mexicans, and Muslims, is unacceptable. And that's the other party. And these files will be open, I think, here and there. There's something probably we should be noticed here. Trump, most of the time, addressed the American white collars. And he tried to remind them how the United States is great.
Yeah, I'm sorry, can I interrupt you here, because we have with us on the line, we have our correspondent, Shurub Bekir, who is actually she has with her the Economic Council of the U.S. Embassy. We'll be getting to that interview in a minute. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Now, as I said, he was reminding the Americans all the time that the United States is great, is big, is powerful, but under the Democrats, she lost a lot of that. And he attacked the Obama administration, the Democrats in general, and he highlighted certain examples, like, for instance, the services and the defense extended by the United States, which is done on the responsibility of the states at its expense without participation of the others. The mentality of a businessman, that nothing for nothing.
Yes.
You see?
But is it feasible that we could see, let alone it's a female, but that the Democrats will hit the White House for the third time in a row? I mean, the two consecutive times in itself is something not really known for the for the Democratic Party, let alone a third time.
I think quite objectively, because I'm not aligned to this or that, there's something which is very important. You know what? Okay. You talk to somebody coming from a village or from a city, from a state, and he has seen nothing else. And he considers that what he has seen in his village is the ceiling of the world, or the ceiling of, or in the city, the ceiling of the city. All that, well, is being under the habit of thinking that we are the strongest, we are the greatest, we are the richest, and accordingly we set the rules of the game. In all these cases, there's something which should be observed. You know what? They do not observe sufficiently the changes that goes around them. In other words, that chap in the village has seen nothing else, does not know what's going on. And the city is governed by that outlook. In case, of course, I'm not specifying anything in particular, but I'm telling you about the mentality. Or in a country where that's being injected all the time, and you do not observe what's happening around you. Now, when Trump talks about that, and up to a certain extent, probably the general public opinion and media, up to a certain extent, varying, of course.
I'm really sorry, I'm going to interrupt you here. We have with us an interview with the cultural counselor at the U.S. Embassy here in Cairo. Yes, Shuru, can you start the interview, please?
Hi, how are you doing? We're still, of course, in this reception that is held by the American Embassy in Cairo, and we have right now with us Mr. Adnan Ahmed Siddiqui. How are you, sir?
Fine,
Welcome
thank you.
to Nile TV.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask you. Sorry. I'd like to ask you, what's your vision, of course, as a culture affair consular for the culture affair? How do you see the Egyptian-American culture relations going to be?
Well, I must tell you, I'm very heartened to see the turnout tonight. So many people, Egyptian friends and acquaintances, are here tonight at the reception to talk to Americans from all walks of life. It shows you how vibrant our dialogue and our relations, cultural relations, are between the American people and the Egyptian people. That's something that my office would like to encourage and to foster, and we're doing our best to bring some interesting programs to the Egyptian people, and this is one of them.
Okay, as we are following the election, the American election 2016, how do you see and why it is called historic elections? Why?
Well, we like to think of all our elections as historic in the sense that it's after 4 years, the American voters make their choices known, and it's always a difficult choice for them, and often our elections are very close. But this year is especially historic because we have a woman running for president, the first time that a major political party, the Democrats in this case, have nominated a woman, Mrs. Hillary Clinton, to be their nominee for president. And it's also historic for the Republican Party because they have nominated a businessman instead of a professional politician to be their nominee. So whoever wins this election, it's going to be a historic opportunity, and we look forward to the results.
Great. Can you tell us more about today's reception that is held by the American Embassy, of course, in Cairo? And I can see inside there's an invitation for the polls for the election. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, we try to arrange something for everything for tonight. So we have things for young people, like they can take their photos with cut-ups, photos of the two candidates, or President Obama or they can actually have a vote. They put their vote in the ballot box, just pretending to vote, but it's fun to have that. And we also have young Egyptians who are doing debates amongst themselves, and they're pretending to be political parties. So it's all in good fun, and it's all to kind of celebrate freedom and democracy and the American system and the friendship between our two countries.
Of course, we hope whoever wins, we hope it's going to be a good election and a competitive one. Of course, as we can see, it's the First Lady, I guess, to get to the elections, American elections, right? So hopefully it's going to be a great night today.
Yes, we look forward to it as well. And of course, this is just the first part of a two-part event. We come back tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. and we will see the results coming in. And we hope, inshallah, it's going to be very quick. We will have a result that we can announce to all our friends. Sometimes the voting takes longer. You never know. But as you said earlier, it's going to be historic, whatever happens.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll be back with more.
Thank you, Shuru. Thank you for your updates. Well, the U.S. Embassy's cultural counselor said it is historic because it's a female running.
Yeah.
The fact that it's a female running, and we can safely say that the United States at least is 50% females, would this be encouraging? Would this be a factor for them to go and elect, especially since Trump had not so diplomatic comments regarding females in his previous statements, not just in the campaign trail, but even before that, which, you know, when you run for anything, when you're for any public figure, some skeletons have to come out.
Well, up to a certain extent, but I would not really overvalue that in totality. I've heard some comments which came probably from more reserved people that did not object. Let me be very clear. They did not object, but, well, they made a remark upon that. So I think, yes, others probably will take that as one of the achievements realized by the United States as far as the females are concerned, etc., to be the president of the largest and the most powerful country in the world. But going back to probably what I did not really continue is the world is changing around the United States. And this is going to be a real test.
Yes.
Trump seems to be static. Greatness, power, money, etc., no solutions coping with these changes, or at least
on an international scale, you mean?
On an international scale.
Or his foreign policy.
Generally speaking, on his foreign policy, of course. Now, Clinton, of course, has much more experience.
This is her job.
So she, I think, without probably pointing out at that, she's better positioned to deal with these challenges as a consequence of that change. And that's a factor in itself.
Can we divide things in two here? And maybe I'm going to put you in a difficult position, because if I ask you for who is better for the United States?
Who is what?
Better. Who's a better candidate? Who will serve better the U.S. interests inside the U.S.? Hillary or Trump? Versus who will serve their interests overseas? Hillary or Trump?
No, I would say Hillary.
Even inside?
Yeah. I'll tell you why. She better realizes the changes that are going around the States, and that's very important to the country's politics and to the country's security as well. Two, she does not have an accumulation of static or bad reputation, if I might put it that way, of talking about the allies of the United States in a way which Europeans, as you know, objected to, and others as well. Three, that she did not project sectarianism the way that we have seen in Trump's, and accordingly, that's very important. Now, we should not underestimate something which has been mentioned by the candidates and by the mediator, which is no one wants a divided United States. In other words, you can have differences of view on major issues.
Hillary can unite.
But if you come, for instance, if I take migration, on a country which was based on migration,
Yes.
and you expose that to all the harsh statements which were said in their campaign, no one likes that. And as a matter of fact, that's very dangerous, because that might mean disintegration or gradual disintegration in certain components of that society. And that,
But some are saying that basically what Trump is saying is not diplomatically correct. He doesn't know what is diplomatically correct.
No,
to
no, no,
say.
it's not diplomatic.
Not that it's not the sentiments
No,
of
no, no,
both
no, it's not
candidates.
diplomatic. I think, well, of course, I don't know the man. I've never been with him. But I think if I assess the thing, look at his background. He has come out from a family. He inherited $1 billion. That's what has been said. And he started his business, real estate, casinos, malls, whatever. And certainly at the age of 70, having done that all his life, inevitably he's influenced and governed, I'd say, by the experiences aligned to that sort of career, and that's inevitable. And then out of the blue, because the Republican Party is not at its best shape, he pushes forward, is able to polarize the white collars and others as well, and to put things at that. But it is absolutely dangerous, not only in the States, but for any country, to consider that, well, we are the center of the world. We are the strong, we are the rich, we are the unbeatable, and ignore willingly or just as a matter of habit of thinking what's happening around us, how the world develops, etc. And that's very dangerous. Now, once more coming back, because we're talking about the United States, but this is a general phenomenon.
Yes.
Well, for me, Trump exposed that in many instances. And that was, as a matter of fact, also driven, as I think, by his ego. Okay? So it became a part of not only the way he thinks, of his personality as well.
Don't you think that maybe because the United States foreign policy over the past, well, quite number of years, has not really differed? It hasn't, and it has not won the United States popularity worldwide. Clinton is part and parcel of that foreign policy because she served as the U.S. Secretary of State, so she was actually one of the key vehicles in this foreign policy. Don't you think the American voter might rethink that maybe we need new blood, we need to regain our popularity worldwide, and maybe Trump can do this, maybe he can sort of shift the vehicle in a different direction? Because they lost a lot of popularity.
I think you're right. I think you're right. But the thing is, under the existing circumstances, this has not been projected. If I look from a certain distance, neutrally, to the Republican Party, I think it is in a dilemma apart from Trump. Because the big question is, are the Republicans able to live and conduct their policies in a changing world? A big question mark.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we actually have with us on the line our correspondent, Dina Hawaydaq, who actually has the U.S. ambassador here in Cairo. And let's see what His Excellency has to say about the historic elections. Dina?
Yes, I can hear you.
Go ahead. How are the elections progressing from His Excellency's point of view?
Yes, we're still following the event that the Cairo ambassador here at the Cairo embassy in Cairo is holding tonight. And joining me right now, His Excellency Embassy Ambassador, American Ambassador to Cairo, Stephen Bigcroft. Thank you so much for being with us on Nile TV.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here tonight, and I'm glad you're here too.
Can you please talk to us about how did you follow up the election since the early morning?
Well, I just follow them on the internet, and I follow them on television, and I'll continue to follow them through the night until we see a result first thing in the morning. I've talked to people in the United States that work in media, and what they've told me is that they expect the election results to become evident sometime between 9 and 11 p.m. East Coast time. That's 7 hours different, so about 4 to 6 a.m. in the morning here in Cairo.
So how do you see the result of the elections, either Hillary Clinton won or Donald Trump won? Will it affect the American-Egyptian relationship?
Well, I think, the candidates, part of the campaign process is to make sure that the voters understand your position on things, and the voters can distinguish your positions from the other candidates' positions. And I think they've done a good job of that. But I think that who's ever elected, whether it's Hillary Clinton or whether it's Donald Trump, will come to office recognizing the importance of a strong relationship with Egypt. The United States historically has had a very strong relationship with Egypt. The United States historically has recognized the important role that Egypt can play in the region, and who's ever president of the United States is going to want to see Egypt play the best, most productive possible role that it can in the region and in the world. And I think they'll also see that by working together, by partnering, we can accomplish a whole lot that's in both our interests and in the interests of both our peoples. So I think I fully expect to see a good, strong, productive, successful relationship with the United States and Egypt.
Your Excellency, can you please update us or talk to us about the program tomorrow in the morning?
Well, we're here tonight, and then we're going home, take a brief rest. Some people will stay up all night watching the results, and we'll be back first thing in the morning here to celebrate the outcome of the election and to talk some more, have a good time for breakfast.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your time, and thank you for joining us on Nile TV tonight.
No, it's my pleasure. Thanks for coming out
Dina,
tonight. I appreciate it very much.
ask...
We enjoy celebrating part of our culture with our Egyptian friends. Egypt has so much to offer in the way of culture. It's nice to be able to invite
Dina,
Egyptians
we
to
just wanted to ask the ambassador a question, if we may. Dina, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, we just wanted the ambassador to maybe sort of predict how many of those eligible to vote will actually turn out to vote this time. Is the 2016 election a popular one?
The anchor in the studio is asking you, how do you see the eligible voting compared to the elections before?
How do I see voting? I don't know. I haven't actually tracked that. I don't know. I know that millions of Americans will come out and vote. I don't know if more people will come out this time than last time. It tends to fluctuate, and I just don't have a good sense of that. So I'm sorry, I'm not a good person to answer that question. I apologize to the anchor in the studio. My apologies.
Which states?
Thank you very much.
Which states are the pivotal states in the outcome of the election results? Which states are the pivotal states in the outcome of the elections?
I cannot hear you.
Which states, in his opinion, which states are the key ones to the outcome of the elections?
Oh, she is asking which states did you see are that will handle are the main keys.
Well, all states are important, and as we've seen in previous elections, when they've been very, very close, every American's vote in a tight election certainly counts. So, states are very, very important. People tend to focus on the big states, but I would say, in a close election, every vote counts. Every state, the outcome in every state counts. So I'm not good at pointing to any specific state. I know there are certain states that they see as very contested and very close, and it's hard to predict the outcome. And they'll be the ones that, depending on which way they go, will tip the scale one way or the other in favor of a candidate. But she probably has the anchor, he or she probably has a better sense of that than I do.
Back to Nermeen.
Well, thank you very much, Dina, and thank the ambassador for his input. Thank you very much. Are you of the same opinion that there is no political weight to any state? Because maybe the ambassador, he was
No, I took it from another angle. My angle is when you go to the electoral college. Now, and of course, this is a part of the system. Now, the largest number we have is in California. California is 55.
Yes.
The second state after California is Florida. And Florida, I think, is 29 or 30. So there's still some difference. So California, I think, in that
And
context...
that usually is what? Republican? It goes to the Republicans or Democrats?
California is mostly, I think, Democrats. I think so. In the West, California, I think, is mostly Democrats. Washington State, I think, is
Washington, Seattle, not Washington, D.C.
Seattle,
Yes.
Seattle, yeah. Oregon, I'm not sure, really. I don't know.
Well, Ohio, for example, was a Democrat state, but following the news today, it seems that they don't have a lot of a large number of Democrats turning into vote.
Undecided, and there's something which was a phenomenon in the last 3 weeks or so, which is especially the Clinton campaign came out more than once to tell people, please go and elect, because they were worried that the other campaign might encourage people to stay and not go. And accordingly, the vote in that case might turn in the interest of Trump at Clinton's, while that might not really project the actual weight of the election. So it's rather, this is a very special election. As I told you, I've seen more than that. In more than 1 decade, I felt that the climate is not decided, insufficient enthusiasm, new files which are popping out, and we should have the way, if any administration is going to deal with that.
Okay.
Internal and external as well.
We have a few minutes left, and maybe I'll shift the discussion here to another thing, and that is, even though the American people are actually out there practicing the democratic right of selecting the president, but as it's a superpower, the world really is standing by, really watchful of who will actually make it to the White House. If we sort of take it continent by continent, for example, or how you would want to divide it, who do you think would be a more popular president, for example, with the Europeans? Would they want Clinton or Trump?
I think they would go with Clinton.
This region, Middle East?
Yeah.
Clinton?
I think so. I think so. Because Clinton has that experience, has a better background. Even if there are differences, she's in a position to negotiate, amend, etc., etc., etc. And let us remember something, that, of course, Clinton projects itself that, well, and this is very true, that she's her own self. This is very natural. But at the same time, she was intimately close to the system as Secretary of Foreign Affairs, as part of the Obama administration as well. That's something. And then let's not omit in the whole context that you're the first lady with Bill Clinton.
Yes, definitely. Well, we have with us via Skype from Washington, Mr. Khalil Khashan, and I hope I'm pronouncing the last name correctly. He's the president of the Arab Center in Washington, D.C. Mr. Khashan, can you hear us?
Jahshan is the name, yeah.
Yes. Can you just give us a sense of how do you see the elections progressing? I mean, I know it's too early to tell who is the president, but definitely you get a sense of how the flow is moving.
The flow is moving as expected. I mean, since this morning, all public opinion surveys in this country showed a leadership or the Democratic candidate, Hillary Clinton, leading the Republican counterpart, Trump, with a small percentage ranging between 3 to 5. Nothing has changed since this morning. In terms of the local elections or the local anticipation of the elections, focusing on the college, if you will, the chances for Clinton has been higher. I think as of this morning, the Electoral College has shown Hillary Clinton leading by 290, 291 votes, which is 20 more than what is needed to become president.
Yes.
So it looks like her chances for winning are much higher than Trump.
When you say people, it seems that Clinton is a more popular candidate. How is she more popular? What do you think encouraged the Americans to give her the vote and not Trump? Where's the difference here?
The difference basically in the fact that she is a much more credible candidate. The world does not want change the way that sector of American society within the Republican Party wants change to simply dismantle the system and have an unpredictable candidate govern the United States. The world community and a majority of Americans, I think at this time, would like to see a candidate who is flawed, nonetheless, who is also predictable. And that's why I think she's ahead. Her negatives are high. People have criticism with regards to positions, her specific positions on some specific issues, but they prefer her over the Republican candidate on that basis. That the same applies, I think, to European allies. The same thing applies to Arab allies and Arabs in general in the region. Survey we did 2 weeks ago showed, again, her popularity was in the 60th percentile, and his was way down, basically, under 20%.
In this region, in the Arab region as well?
In the Arab region. The survey we did was conducted in 9 different countries, including Egypt.
Okay.
And she enjoyed the support of a majority among the people of these 9 countries.
Mr. Khalil Khashan, thank you very much for joining us on To The Point.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. It seems that even on an international scale, as you were saying, that her popularity, and now it's with polls, so it's quite scientific.
It's not. Let me just put some comments here. See, as far as the Arab world is concerned, Hillary Clinton is not going to do something out of what has been taking place. She's going to move in that space, which, from our point of view, of course, in certain cases, is not quite convenient, is probably putting aside some important issues like the Palestinian issue, etc. But at least that, this is more or less, these are basics on which the ground will move. Then you have another candidate who probably knows nothing about this part of the world intimately. He has heard about, according to what he said in certain statements, that the Gulf states have money, that they are rich people. What else? That is going to put the Israeli embassy in Jerusalem. Nothing outstanding. And that the allies of the United States should pay for the services the United States is rendering. I mean, it's a black hole, okay? It's a black hole you know nothing about. Naturally, in that system, there's a lot of help coming from lots of agencies, as you know. But still, the president on top has quite an influence and has quite an authority, and he decides. And sometimes people that this lack of practice and this, let me say, preset ideas cannot help in that. There's no time for him or for other leaders as well to open schools, to gain experience and to learn about what's going on. There's a certain bottom line that should be there in which things can be built. That bottom line, as is seen by many people, is not convincing.
Should Hillary hit the White House, what do you think Trump will be doing? I mean, will he be involved in politics in any way?
Trump has to face the following issues. Number one.
Because he doesn't like to lose.
Okay.
This is what we're being
right.
told.
He will cause, of course, some sort of opposition, a lot of loud voices. I don't know if people have projected that, but Trump at a certain time had a program on TV. Do you know about that?
No.
Oh, well, he did. Some years ago, Donald Trump presented a TV program. So he has experience in the media and he has contacts and so on. But to present a program, which I have never seen myself, I heard about it, is something, and leading the country is something else. He doesn't like to lose, okay. Now, that, as a matter of fact, puts the Republican Party before a very big challenge, because Republicans should answer themselves. Is this our only candidate? Is this the correct representation of the Republicans? 3, what should the Republicans do to regain the confidence of the country and the credibility of what their capacity is to cope with the changes in the world? Now, so far, apart from Trump, well, it's a classical core, depending on the white collars, on the part of the churches, some other influences, and so on and so forth, some fixed ideas.
Yes.
But the world is larger, certainly like that. They do not seem to have done their homework so far sufficiently. Trump is not going to add to that. So, even if he loses, as you said, and he's not a good loser, he will cause a lot of squabble around what's taking place, will object, but he will not be positioned to lead things, especially the party in its bulk is not with him.
What about if Hillary loses? Well, and since she's been a political figure for quite a number of years, will she?
The Democrats will absorb, I think, are better positioned to absorb loss if this happens.
Yes.
But as probably we said at the very outset, this election has no very bright stars. You have stars, all right?
Yes.
But not very bright stars. In other elections, we show these bright stars.
Well, Your Excellency, unfortunately, our time is up. Thank you very much for joining us. And in a few hours, expected by 11 p.m. Eastern Time, which is around 6 a.m. Cairo local time, the initial results should actually be out in the air. And stay tuned to Nile TV's international special coverage of the U.S. elects its president. And on that note, wishing you a very pleasant evening and good night.